Hey everybody, I'm Codependency Kate, and welcome to the gray area where we go from black and white to the gray, from one or the other to both. I love doing this thing. I love talking. Okay, today we're gonna do something a little different than what I would normally do. I normally just yap and yap and yap, but today we're gonna do that with a little bit more structure. I don't know if you guys know this. I haven't really promoted it, but on my social media, so on my uh, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, I have a link in my bio. It's a little link tree, and there's different links there. And one of them is a form where you can submit your story to be and your questions about your situation, basically, to be discussed here. And so I actually put this up like a month ago. And then I took it down because I'm like, oh, I get DMs all the time. Why am I just making a separate form? Um, but I realized it's too disorganized, so I put the form back up. So I have 8 responses so far, and 3 of them are in the category of parenting. So y'all know I talk a lot about estrangement, about parenting, about your own trauma, about relationships, marriage, those kinds of things. So there are different categories of like situations. And I have 3 parenting situations and questions that I wanted to answer and go over. And what I want to do, well, let me like set a disclaimer before we jump in here, but what I want to just make very clear is that I don't know these people. These are random people. All the only information I have, like demographically of them, is their name, and so I don't know what I'm going to be doing from these situations is extrapolating and generalizing from my experience. So that's the difference between this and like actual therapy. I'm not talking to this person. I'm talking to kind of like a projection of this person's situation, and I'm just going to like zoom out and make some assumptions here just for the sake of education and helping people understand more, just provide more context and specifics around certain things that I've already talked about. You guys know I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm also a trauma therapist, so I see couples, individuals, and a lot of themes come up in these things. So again, this is not about their specific situation. If you find that this resonates with you, please bring this to your support system. Don't take this as fact, like I know your situation. There might be other factors that are not included here that are important, if not more important than the other details we're going to talk about. So please just, be responsible, use your discernment to yeah, just make sense of this for yourself. At the same time, if things feel good and if they feel right, that's good. If you notice in your body you're taking sighs of relief, like that's really good. That's what we want. So, all right, let's get into it. We have 3 different situations here. One is an older parent with an adult child. One has kind of a transitioning child. She's an 18-year-old going to college, and then this other parenting situation is active parenting. So, well, I don't know. It's always active parenting, but where the kids live in your home. She's got 2 teenage sons, 17 and 15. So we're going to address kind of the 3 different areas of parenting, what's different, what's the same, and kind of just specifics about these situations. So the first, I don't know, what should we start with? Okay, let's start with the youngest one first. So, all right, my husband and I have 2 teenage sons, 17 and 15. Great relationships with them. Super thankful for that. You spoke on your Instagram about helping your kids find their edges and their own boundaries rather than enmeshing ourselves as parents to them. Okay, first of all, I don't think I've used the term edges. It's so interesting to hear people's like how they hear what I'm saying. That happens a lot in therapy where they're like, and you told me this. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's how it landed. I did think say those words. I meant it differently. So again, backing up, that's why it's so important here to like take this generally and not specifically to your situation. Anyway, she said, I would love more specifics and clarity with this on helping kids find their own boundaries. I've tried implementing this theory by asking the boys questions when they come to us with an issue or a problem instead of jumping in with how I would handle it. I try to help them dig the answer up out of themselves. Is this the right direction? Yes, 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 and yes. Her other question was, let's see, how can I help them find their own boundaries, limitations without imposing my own preferences upon them? My husband and I want them to be confident humans without being unhealthily enmeshed to us forever. And ultimately, we want healthy relationships with them as they become adults and build families of their own. Love, 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 love. Okay. Let's address a couple things on the front end. First of all, love that this parent is engaging. Sounds like, having great, they all want great relationships. It's so good that you're staying engaged as a parent at this point. Because I think this time is like the most important time for your kids and for you. It's a huge transitional time, 17 and 15. They are gearing up to leave the nest. And it's the most important time. Like they're the most to adults that you're ever going to have, when they're directly involved with you. So, the first thing I want to say, how can I help them find their own boundaries? So, okay. So, imagine you have been in the driver's seat their whole lives. They just moved up to the passenger seat, a couple years ago. So, what is happening now is they are moving into the driver's seat. I would encourage this with both 17 and 15. Like, I mean, literally, they're in the driver's seat. 15, you can get your permit. But what I want parents to understand is like you are moving to the passenger seat emotionally. You're saying when they're driving down the road, you're not saying take that turn, take that turn. You're saying, okay, which direction do you want to go? Where is the best way to go? And if they're like, I don't know, well, it's like, okay, let's do it together. Let's figure it out. It's not saying, okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to rescue you. Because what she's saying is like, I've tried implementing this theory by asking the boys questions when they come to us instead of jumping in with how I would handle it. Okay. So if you have done that, it's really important to back up and like be aware of the differences between the two of you, how you would handle things versus them. You have to just as a parent be aware of yourself. You have to be aware of when you're even doing this, and this is a hard thing to do. But the biggest thing at this age is asking questions, so you're right, but also being there. Like you're not like abandoning them in the car. The other thing at this point, which I think is the bigger issue here, the bigger question. How are you doing this in your own life? Are you unenmeshed in your own life with your husband? Because this person, she says specifically husband. How are you unenmeshed? Do you rescue them when they have a problem with work, with their day? How do you engage with them? And not to say that this is the same situation at all. I'm saying that the biggest thing at this point in time is actually being a good person because they're going to do what you do and not what you say. So you engaging with them in a way where it's like, man, I don't know. If they have a problem, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you need right now? My whole thing is like, how are you feeling? What do you need? What do you want out of this situation? Help them talk it through and then offer not, I wouldn't say offering suggestions and advice because if you're doing that, that's about you. If you're offering suggestions and advice as like a way to add to the issue, like add to the tools, that's one thing where you kind of recognize that ultimately it's up to them. Okay, here's another analogy. Imagine that when they come to you, they have a backpack on. And instead of giving, like, mom, this is so disorganized. My backpack is so disorganized. All stuff in here is so overwhelming. I don't know what to do. And if normally you would just take the backpack, honey, I got it. Don't even worry about it. And they're like, oh, thank you, mom. That feels so good as a parent when they see you and you can help them and just provide for them and take care of them. That is such a good feeling. It's so important at this stage when they're 17 and 15, instead of taking the backpack from them and doing everything for them, you say, I don't know, let's lay it out and see. Like dump it out in front of us. Like let's start here. Like I'm here, but like we're going to do it together and you're going to lead the way. So just here, dump it out in front of us instead of taking the backpack, instead of like them giving it to you, saying, I don't know, let's dump it out. So what this looks like is when they're like, hey, mom, what do I do? If you take this literally, you're gonna kind of rescue them because it's really hard when you feel helpless, when your kids are struggling, when they're kind of directly or indirectly asking you for help. It's like, how do I gauge the situation? You just ask them. But you can't take what they're saying literally. Like, as a therapist, I have to do this. When someone comes in and they're like, Kate, I have depression. How do I heal this? At first, when I was first starting, I was like, oh my God, like my brain would start going for fireworks, shooting to the moon, just thinking of all these different ways to explain this. And then I was like, I'm realizing I'm a little dysregulated. I'm overwhelmed by this question. Okay, and then I understand that I'm not in their own brain and I don't understand it the way they do. And so I need to first understand how they understand it. How do I they, and so I'm building on that and I'm helping them expand themselves and I'm just adding things here or there. So I would normally this is what I do now. And people even now are like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a big question. That's a great question. Let's figure it out." And then you kind of break it down. But again, you can't take things literally. You have to take a deep breath and know that you're going to be dysregulated when they ask you literal things. And imagine them spilling the backpack in front of you and being like, "Okay, what do you need? Which part is this? Like, what is this binder for? What is this for?" You're asking them questions. What this is going to do is they're going to internalize questions and they're going to internalize self compassion because you're not shaming them, you're not dismissing them, but you're also not enabling them. Those are kind of two sides of the spectrum. Like one is rescuing, one is persecuting. Like if y'all look up the drama triangle, and that creates a victim, that creates someone that can't do anything themselves. So, what you have to do is again, just imagine that scenario. And then, so that's when they're directly coming to you, but you have to get your own life. They're leaving the nest. Your life cannot be them. And what the point of that is to model what adulthood looks like, to model interactions, to model not being enmeshed, to model respecting other people's boundaries, to model standing up for yourself in your own life. Like when the fast food worker or the restaurant person, they mess up your order, are you respectful and are you honest? Can you do both? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just being the person that you want them to be, but I think ultimately it just comes down to being yourself and modeling repair when you mess up with yourself, modeling like, oh, I'm overwhelmed today. Okay, let me take a deep breath. What do I need? What do I need? What am I feeling? I'm stressed out because of this. Okay, let me just take a break. Let me sit down for a second. You're just literally talking out loud to yourself and you're modeling it to them. And it's more like you're inspiring them as opposed to directly teaching them, I read something, and this is the last thing I'll say about this one parenting thing, but I saw something on Instagram where it was like a clip from a podcast, and this mom was saying how on Friday nights she would not schedule anything just in case her kids like didn't have plans with their friends. And so she would just kind of like go ahead and plan Friday nights to be a movie night or to be at home for herself. And so that way she was there if her kids needed her. And they didn't have to ask. I think that's presence. Like that's when kids are becoming teenagers and they're asserting their independence and they want their own life. You cannot push them to spend time with you. You have to like inspire them and just be around and like let them come to you. So, in summary, becoming a good person yourself, modeling it in your own life, but not in a like hyper vigilant way where you're like, that they're watching you, just like be yourself and make mistakes and own your mistakes and and ask them questions and say, I think you're really good at this. I think an area you struggle is this. And what do you think about that? So you're always like, not being annoying, like interrogating them or like putting things back on them. They might get frustrated with you if you've always rescued them and you're changing something. You can say, yeah, I mean, I have definitely rescued you. That's been on me. I need to help you figure this out right now. Like that's what you need to do. But like I'm here. So you're not rescuing. You cannot rescue. Okay. Um but the last thing is like you need to know for yourself this is a big transition for you and you need to know your own stress responses. Do you overcompensate? How do you overcompensate for lack of control or like loss because that is the phase that you're going through. This is a huge phase. This might be the biggest phase of parenting, literally, when your kids are going to college, when they're leaving the house, when they're becoming their own person. It's scary, it's terrifying, but and so you need to be aware of your own stress and manage that. You need to talk with your friends, you need to go to a therapist. Cannot let it come out on them. All right? So moving that segues us to our next one. How do I help my 18-year-old with anxiety? How to balance giving her practical help with recognizing her agency as a young adult. I don't want to undermine her autonomy, but she's also having trouble transitioning to college. Okay, same thing. Like, okay, it's the biggest transition of all time. People are so hard on their kids and have really high expectations for them to do well, I think. Or they like helicopter parent their first year of college, for example. So I think this is a great question. I'm curious about where the word anxiety comes from, if that's like a diagnosis or if that's her language. So that's kind of the first thing is like, is this a diagnosis or are you just noticing symptoms or is that what she's saying? You have to validate her anxiety and champion her for acknowledging it. I also want to champion this parent for the same thing. Like this parent is doing the same, having the same questions as the one I just spoke about. How to balance giving her practical help with recognizing her agency. So it's again asking questions and it's imagining her backpack of anxiety, laying it down in front of both of you. I don't want to undermine her autonomy. She's having trouble transitioning to college. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is she calling you every day? Is she like what is she doing? Because at this point in time, you're allowed to have your own life too. Like you're not her rescuer. Your job is to help her find resources. So like if you're going to this new stage of life and you're working more, you're going to the gym more, you're with your friends more, whatever, and you just emotionally need are trying to not distance but empower. What this looks like is asking her what resources she has. So like here's another example. Cuz I'm not a parent of an adult child or even close. I have a 1-year old. So but being a therapist, I think there's a lot of similarities with this with being a therapist and parenting in that it's leadership and it's empowering. So what I would do in this situation, just like leadership wise, is you're asking her what resources she has. Like, sweetheart, I can't pick up the phone all the time as much as I want to be here for you. And I know you're struggling. What other resources do you have? What can you do when you're feeling this way? Do you need a therapist? Like, do we need to find you somebody? And so you're still like they're only 18, they're not 3 years into college. This is a huge transition. And I think it's reasonable to be there with them as much as you want to this first year. I think never abandoning them. Like you don't want to be like, I don't know, figure it out. Like that's emotionally abandoning them. And that's your fault as the parent to be that you're not being a good leader. You're not meeting them where they are and helping them find resources. The other part of this is like, okay, so I'm noticing you're feeling a lot of anxiety. Like, first of all, this is very normal. It's very normal. This is a huge transition. This is a huge transition, the biggest of your life so far. It makes sense you're struggling with it. Like, who knew what this would be like? The thing with anxiety though is like it's not, oh my gosh, I can't handle. It's not, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff. It's also I can't handle it. So that's your goal as a parent to like, is it this to help boil it down, first of all, what they feel like they can't handle? What are the actual struggles? Is it the schoolwork? Is it friends? Is it, you're getting into this. You're saying like, you got to know what this stuff is as the parent. Have y'all watched the documentary from Alex Cooper? She has a podcast called Call Her Daddy. She's like one of the I think the most successful female podcaster. And the content of her podcast is pretty raunchy. And I'm sure a lot of parents like don't want their kids listening to it. At the same time, I was really struck by her parents in this documentary. I think it's on Hulu, maybe. I don't know. It's called Call Her Alex. And in this documentary, she played Division I soccer, and she kind of came out later to say that her coach was like sexually harassing her. I mean, this is crazy. And the coach was a woman. So that's the other thing that made it like just feel so icky. And so what I noticed in what that the parents did when Alex would call them and talk to them about the coach and everything. They wrote everything down. They validated her. They believed her, and they never abandoned her. They weren't like, I don't know, figure it out. Like, you made your bed, now you have to lie in it. They were like, what are your choices? How is this affecting you? They wrote everything down and they took her seriously. And your kids are still kids. Their brains don't develop until 25, 26, 27 these days. Like, they're still, the teenager phase is a little elongated than I think it used to be. And so you're not a bad parent for like helping them transition. I mean, she's 18 years old. Like, that's so young when you think about it. College is so hard. When I look back at college, I'm like, oh my God, this was the hardest time of my life, socially, emotionally, physically. With school, you don't know the direction of your life. Like, oh my gosh, I talk about this about my friends, my college roommates. We're just like, oh my God, would you go back? And everyone's like, hell no. College was so hard. And it's hard, it's a different hard than high school. There's social issues, there's work. So, is your kid having to work too? That's another thing. Um, so asking her what it is, what are the causes, what are the fires that are happening around her, and where is the water to put it out? Like, what resources does she have? So I think that's your job as a parent. That may be a way to think about it when they're parenting, is like helping them find resources. That's what I have to do as a therapist. So, like, say I have a very acute client who is actively suicidal. I have to make a safety plan with them. But I also, my goal is like, I'm not going to be on call for this person. I can't. Like, there are boundaries there. And so, what I say is like, if this comes up, who are you going to call? Like, what are your resources? What are you going to do? And it's up to them to do it. But it's also up to me to help them figure out a realistic plan of something they're really going to do. If their mom is the trigger to their suicidality, she's not going to be the one they call in her safety plan. And so as a parent, you have to relinquish control that they're going to choose to do what they're going to do and not enable them like emotionally where you're working harder than them. But again, you're helping them, and you have to be able to do this, you have to again tolerate your own anxiety. This is the scariest time of life for you. And that is normal and that is okay. And your stress responses are going to come out. This may be a really hard time for your marriage. If you're married, your partnership, maybe it's tough with your other kids. Like, it's a really hard time for you. And so as a parent, you have to like not check yourself, but like be compassionate with yourself, be gentle on yourself, and know that this is a really hard time for you. And it's going to be really, really hard when your kid calls you for help. I mean, impossible if your kid's struggling with anxiety to be okay. And that's okay. But you have to realize, like, regulate and know what is yours and what is theirs, and know that you can both get through it. Like, this is a phase, this is a transition. It's so hard. And there is a time that things will calm down. There is a time things will calm down. So just being like regulating yourself. That's the name of the game with parenting. It's regulating yourself so they can be regulated. When they call you, are you freaking out? Are you like internally like, oh my gosh, wow, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? Like, what's your energy? Are you like, oh my gosh, whew, I'm with you. College is really hard. It was hard for me too. And this is the age where you can start really identifying with them, like sharing, not necessarily oversharing your experience and like what you would do, but saying, yeah, I remember struggling with that too. And then I found a really good therapist, and then I met some really good people, or, like, it takes time to figure it out. It's like they're going to a new school. It takes time. And so just be compassionate with yourself and be compassionate with her. That's the deal. That's the deal. So, and that they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure it out. Um, okay. So there's that, and then this is the last parenting question. This one's a little, okay. My adult child blames me for not putting a stop to my husband's frequent angry outbursts and temper tantrums. My 32-year-old daughter just got out of a 12-year relationship with a narc, and she blames me for teaching her to put up with angry men. Ooh, okay. I'm so glad I went in this order also because these are just the phases of parenting. So if you can imagine her 32-year-old daughter just got out of a 12-year relationship. So this her daughter met someone when she was 20 years old, and she blames me for teaching her to put up with angry men. And then her question is, doesn't an adult child have some responsibility for the partner they choose? Let's see, what was her other question? How do you get my someone to go to therapy, my daughter? Okay. Um, Again, in my opinion, is a result. So there are a couple issues here that come up. I mean, if I'm taking your question literally, doesn't an adult child have some responsibility for the partner they choose? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. I really like that you use the word some because this is definitely a gray area situation. It's not all or nothing. It's not like the mom is at fault for everything and the child has no responsibility. That's how like some, I swear, people in estranged parents think that sometimes. They think if their child has an issue with them, then they're fully to blame for everything in the child. It's all or nothing. It's all on them and the child is nothing. And that mentality is what makes them very ineffective in dealing with this issue because they spend their time being defensive and putting things back on their kid as opposed to just like going with it and just listening to what their kid's really saying and helping their kid expand. They're taking the backpack on themselves when their kids have a problem and when their kids directly blaming them. And I'm curious about what the adult child said, like if it really is blaming them. But, so who's putting the backpack on your back? Is that your child or is it you? And you do have a say in whether you take it. Yes. Can you take parts of it? Can you take the notebooks in the bag? Is that where you like, oh my gosh, I did give her those notebooks because I am or was married to someone with angry outbursts. So the point right now is this kind of, to me, this shows a lack of healthy detachment and connection in her child's 20s. Um, I wonder what their relationship was like over these 12 years. I mean, this is, again, I do have compassion for the parent that this is like almost, it feels like an impossible situation. You're watching your kid in this relationship and hopefully like are you listening to her during it? Are you guys in touch? Are you just like, deal with it? Are you like, this is meant, does she try to talk to you about it before? I'm curious about all those things. Like, could she talk to you about it? Now, zooming out and looking at you, like someone being married to someone who's emotionally dysregulated and dysfunctional and does not change. I want to so this is going to sound crazy. And what I'm going to say is probably going to incite a lot of shame in you as a parent if you're listening to this and you identify with this. Say you have a very toxic partner, they take whatever out on their kids, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're just like that around the house or towards you. I was watching a documentary yesterday, it's like New York homicide, and I learned that if two people are committing a robbery and someone like the person they're robbing dies in the incident in the situation and it was like the other robber that killed them, the robber that's there that the robber that's there that didn't physically kill them is equally, in the eyes of the law, is equally responsible for the death of this person. And I thought that was very fascinating and very relevant to this question because what people need to understand about marriage is you're choosing that. Okay. I feel weird about saying this because women have not had rights or they're in very vulnerable positions in marriage if they are bearing the child and if they're staying at home. So you're at an economic disadvantage where you have less autonomy and agency than someone that has economic power in a relationship. So do not hear this as me blaming you. I'm not blaming you for this situation, but you do have a role in this situation. You do have a role in this situation. You are the parent. You, one, are choosing who you're with. Marriage is a choice. This is different than siblings. This is different with issues with children because these children, these siblings did not choose to be anywhere. They have no choice in the matter. Who you marry is your choice. Who you continue to be married to is your choice. You have a role in this situation. Now, I'm very curious about this mom. So, what I've seen, if we're looking at just the marriage, and we're looking at one person who's very dysfunctional. There's kind of two things here. There is a dynamic issue, and then there's what happens internally as a result of the dynamic. So they're kind of two separate things. Like for example, when someone comes into therapy and they're in a toxic relationship like this, what we need to do first is build on their emotional stuff, like their internal stuff, their self esteem, their self worth, these things. And we need to look at the dynamics. So, couples therapy and individual therapy are like, you can't fix a relationship through individual therapy. You just can't. You can change the role that you play. You can stop being passive because this is what happens naturally as a result of someone that's emotionally volatile, is like this for the sake of the relationship and the attachment, if someone hasn't dealt with their attachment issues, they're going to kind of like adapt and become smaller in certain areas to make the relationship work. And that is a kind of natural thing. And if you're not aware of this, then this is just kind of inevitably what's going to happen. And then once you start going to therapy or prioritizing yourself, you're changing the role that you play in the dynamic and you're healing yourself at the same time. At the same time, that doesn't necessarily make the relationship better. If anything, it makes the relationship worse. And at first, and then, ideally, this other person will see the error in their ways and will get help themselves. But bottom line is that if you're enmeshed, if you are someone that believes that you have to respond a certain way to get someone else to respond a certain way, other adults, you're enmeshed. You are. You are codependent. You are taking responsibility for someone else's behavior, and that's not healthy in adult relationships. With you and your adult child, with you and your children, it's a different situation. You are in control of their environment. You're in control of how you respond to them. They're newly developing and vulnerable. And so you are responsible. Like you do have the biggest leadership role. They don't have zero responsibility, but you have the majority of it. Whereas in adult relationships, it is not the same. Every adult has autonomy. Every adult has agency. And so the way that this person is kind of responding is like my adult child blames me for not putting a stop to my husband's frequent angry outbursts and temper tantrums. I wonder if in her mind she's like, I can't control him. And this is it's so interesting what we see. We see this like disengaged point of view. Like people are either enmeshed or they're disengaged, like they're anxious or avoidant in different relationships where they perceive their power is different. So in marriage, we see this so much with older generations. Like there's like agree to disagree marriages. These are disengaged relationships where her husband's being angry. She's either going to think that she can control it or stop it, or she's going to be like super passive and say, I can't control this. I have no power over him to change the situation. And when you're looking at relationships as like control, when you're looking at it as like I can control them or I can't, that's enmeshment. That's not intimacy. That's not healthy interdependency. That's attachment. That's not, you're not looking at the gray area. You're not looking at your role in this situation. So for this mom, I would really encourage her to look up like Al-Anon, adult children of alcoholics. Like, not to say that this person's an alcoholic or her parents were, but it helps you understand family systems and the role that you play in this dynamic, in this dysfunctional dynamic. So My goal with everyone in general on this page on social media, because again, therapy, it's about the client's goals and what they want. But on social media here, if we're looking at this from a restorative approach, where this mom, she's the one reaching out to me. Her daughter's not reaching out to me. If you are the parent in this situation, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy and look at your role in this, because you denying any role in this or thinking that your child is blaming you fully for it is going to rupture your relationship with your child and maybe do irreparable damage. Because if you're saying she got to have a 12-year relationship with a narc, that means she was emotionally abused and neglected for 12 years in that particular relationship. And if she's in there, if she's like saying, I learned this from you, I mean, yeah, yeah. That's like we learn things from our parents. They are our biggest models for things. And so, yeah, you do have a role in that. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's like, yeah, I did. And so, what you have power and control over now is like, oh my gosh, you're right. I do have a role in this. They're not the same, right? It's not a perfect match, one or the other. That's right or wrong. That's not what it's about. It's not about one or the other, her or you. It's about parts of this that are true. This is about being a good leader. Parts of this are true. What role do you have? What responsibility do you have? And then what do you want in your relationship? Because if you can say, oh my gosh, you're right, I have put up with these angry outbursts, I haven't known how to deal with it. I have never had a clue how to deal with it. What I learned about marriage, what I learned about men, I'm scared. I don't know how to deal with this, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to figure this out. And maybe we can keep having conversations about this, because I think if you got out of a relationship with a narc, you need help too. Like we definitely do. This is something we have in common. And I'm your mom and I love you. And if you feel you got this from me and I don't agree, like there's something I'm missing, because I believe you. Because I believe you. And you're not wrong. Like you're not, if you think your child is blaming you, then you're assuming they're coming from a bad place. I mean, she's 32 years old and she got out of a relationship. She's incredibly resilient and she's incredibly strong to have gotten out of this relationship. And so if you can say like, how did I contribute to this? I am her mother. Like I have some responsibility here. This doesn't just happen. Lightning doesn't just strike and this happens. That's not real. She is valid in this and I'm curious about it and I'm curious about my role in this. I'm not what's going to hold you back from doing this again is your shame. Shame. And if you can name it, then you can work with it. If you can't name it and you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay stuck if you think that she's blaming you and you are stuck fighting her. Because what you're really fighting is the shame that you feel from what she's saying to you. That's what you're really fighting. No, I'm a good mom. No, I gave you everything. No, that's what you're fighting. That's shame. That's a shame response. And it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't, you're like believing all these negative things about you. That's not true. When you name things, you can deal with things. When you just take things at face value, you can't. And so what I would really encourage you to do is go to therapy and learn about your emotions, learn about your shame, learn about where your shame comes from. And you will be able to start the healing process with yourself and with your daughter. And that's what I'm about, is yourself, what you can control with yourself and with your daughter. I imagine if your husband has frequent angry outbursts and and temper tantrums. I mean, you guys, this is emotional abusive behavior. It is. It's dominating emotionally abusive behavior. And it has a major impact on your kids. And so, your number one job, if this is your situation, is to get help in this situation. Is to say, I don't know what control I have here, but I understand that this is going to damage me and my kids over time. And I need to learn about boundaries. I need to learn about emotions. I need to learn about what control I have here, because this environment is going to make you sick. It's going to make you sick. So you can do it. You can do it. This is, I think, the hardest thing. I think marital stuff is the hardest thing. because it's like all your childhood stuff comes out. It's really hard to differentiate what's coming from an adult place versus what's coming from a parent place versus what's coming from a child place. And we all have all those parts in us and they all come out in marriage. So, um, again, but what I'll say is like you reaching out, I think being open, it's okay to like be resistant to what I'm saying. It's okay to be resistant to any like this situation and keep learning. You can do two things, remember? Gray area. All things can exist at the same time. It's very painful and uncomfortable and your body might like over your brain might like overcorrect to going back to it's going to try to stay in default. Like your brain, your body's job is to maintain what's called homeostasis. Just maintain its balance, maintain what it knows, even if it's dysfunctional. And so it takes a lot of active effort to get out of it. But that's what I'm seeing here. And again, take what you like and leave the rest. These are very difficult situations, but there is a reason that there's a whole industry, like in field, clinically built to deal with this. Like, I think education is a big part of this, and learning about it will help you all the same. So, all right. I don't like, I struggle with like, not being abrupt sometimes. So let's see, we answered three parenting questions at three different stages of the family life cycle. And all these parents, again, super cool that you reached out. I mean, I think these questions are from a month ago. I hope they're still engaging with me, following me. And, you know, I think parents that are open and to doing the work, that's the deal. That's the deal is you have to look at yourself. So that's how I'm answering these questions. Did y'all notice? I was like, every single stage, how are you feeling? Are you normalizing your own feelings? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you regulating yourself? That's the only way to differentiate your stuff from your kids' stuff. You have to be honest and look at yourself and deal with your stuff with other adults. So, parenting is the hardest thing in the world. It's the most fulfilling thing. I mean, it's just leadership. It's just leadership. What approach are you taking with your kids? Because it's the approach that matters. It's not your intentions. Good intentions pave the road to hell. Isn't that the expression? But anyway, I want to hear what you guys think about this episode in particular. If these specifics were helpful to you, if they weren't, if you have more questions, what else you want me to cover. I'm so open to learning. You just got to know that I need a yapping style situation. So if your need is to be more organized, I'm so open to any input you have about becoming that way. More that way if it helps you more. So how you can reach me, how you can respond is you can go again to the link in my bio on my social media at Codependency Kate and fill out this form if you want to submit your situation and your questions. Or you can DM me on Instagram. You can also email me, Kate at codependencykate.com. I'm releasing new episodes every Tuesday morning. So be on the lookout for those. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.